Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to head over to Finland once again, and that of course means that we're going to have a look at yet another beer from the latest instalment of the Riku box. So first and foremost, a massive shout out and thank you to Riku Sanaxanaho, my Finnish beer mule. He's responsible for pretty much all of the Finnish reviews that you see here on the channel. He always picks me out some really nice beers. The ones that we've tried from the latest box have been really good, and we're going to be working our way through the other ones over the next little while. So again, a massive key piece and key toss to Riku. I hope that you guys enjoy these reviews as much as I enjoy filming them. So yeah, for this one, we are going to return to a brewery that's featured on the channel a couple of times before. If memory serves me correctly, we've had a Pilsner and an Imperial Stout from this brewery, both of which were very nice. But the one we're looking at today is another style I haven't tried from them before. It's a style that I very much enjoy, and this beer is part of a series that we haven't looked at from this brewery, but one that Riku assures me is pretty damn awesome. So needless to say, I'm very curious to see what this one is going to have in store for us. Hopefully it's another good beer, hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always, I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then, we are going to head to Lappeenranta in the South Karelia region in the southeast of Finland, and we're going to have a look at another beer from Panimoyhtiö Tuju, if I've pronounced that correctly. But yeah, Tuju, Panimo, I guess we could say as well. But this particular beer is called Remains. It comes in at 11% ABV. It's part of their Black Barrel series, and this one is a barley wine aged in cognac barrels for 8 months. So yeah, should be pretty damn nice. As you guys watching the channel for any length of time will know, I love my barley wines, and so yeah, this is one that Riku asked me about and I was very keen on. But in this series they've got another couple of Imperial Stouts which sound very interesting, so I think I'll need to ask Riku about those for one of the future Riku boxes. So yeah, this one, the Remains, 11% cognac barrel aged barley wine from Tuju in Lappeenranta. So looking forward to this. Let's crack on and see what we have. As always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting though, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Panimoyhtiö Tuju, and I'm sure we'll add more to that list in the near future. We do have a sour beer to look at from these guys quite soon as well, but there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support that you give is massively appreciated, and remember, you can go into the channel homepage and search for beer based on, you know, country, city, state, county, province, prefecture. Use the search bar, put your local area in. If we've reviewed beers from that area, they should pop up. Otherwise, you can check out the playlist of beers from different countries. You'll find this one in the Finnish playlist along with many other things. So yeah, let's crack on then and have a wee look at my brewery notes to tell you a little bit about Tuju. My voice is still a little bit dodgy. But anyway, Panimoyhtiö Tuju are based in Lappeenranta in South Karelia in the southeast of Finland, as I mentioned earlier. But the company was founded back in 2015 by Tuomas Mäkiniemi, who has a background in restaurants, and Jukka Mononen, who has a background in healthcare. And they were joined a little bit later on by Samu Koskinen, who is also a shareholder in the company. But this brewery is actually very small, and it operates a British-built 500-litre brew kit, and they only produce in the region of 50,000 litres of beer per year, and it's Tuomas who is the main brewer. But their New England IPAs are apparently regarded as some of the best in Finland, but they only make these for restaurants because they had a bit of bother when they, I can't remember if they canned or bottled these beers, but there were some oxidation problems, but they have been working to fix this from what I understand. But their lower ABV beers can be found in supermarkets across Finland. They've also begun exporting their beers in recent times as well, because they've been collaborating with Coolhead, and things have been going very well for them. They have a few different series of beers. They've got the Black series here, or the Black Barrel series, which are, you know, the big malty Imperial Stouts and barley wines and things like this. They also have another barrel series, which are their sour beers, and you'll see me review one of those a little bit later on. But yeah, like I said, Riku told me that the Pilsner is one of their best beers, and we've tried that on the channel already, and yeah, they've just built a very good reputation for themselves over the last few years. But as of December 2022, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced around 270 different kinds of beer according to Untappd, and like I've said to you, they do a wide variety of different styles. They do different IPAs, They do big malty things. They're starting to do some kind of old school barrel sour things, and yeah, a few lagers and stuff like that. But that is all I can really tell you about Panimoyhtiö Tuju for the moment. These guys, in my experience, are very, very solid brewery, and it's always nice to try new things from them. So if you get the chance, I would recommend you have a go at some of their beers. But yeah, we'll need to add more reviews from these guys to the channel at some point in the future. But yeah, if you want to learn more about these guys, you can of course check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on. And you can check out the Untappd, Rate Beer, or whatever pages to learn a little bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. This really is annoying. But yeah, anyway. So, yeah, let's get on and actually have a taste of this beer itself. So, I showed you the artwork on this one earlier, but you can have another wee look at it. You can see the nice kind of skeletons and stuff dancing around there, which is pretty cool. There you can see Remains, a barley wine aged in cognac barrels for 8 months, 11% ABV, but might be a little bit higher, it kind of indicates. And this was bottled in February of 2021. So I don't know if this is, I don't know when Riku actually bought this one for me, but you know, he always finds interesting stuff and asks me if I would like it. But yeah, there you can see the Tuju symbol, which I think is pretty cool. It's kind of like a barrel with hop flowers and stuff around it. I think that is pretty nice. And you can see we've got this lovely wax top as well. I've of course sliced into this one before we start the video so I can actually get the beer open. But yeah, let's get this guy out then and see what we have. We haven't had too many cognac barrel aged barley wines on the channel, but cognac barrel aging is of course very, very interesting. So yeah, you just see. I do wonder if this is going to work. Ah, there we go. I think I've got a grip. Yeah, there we go. I was worried that I might have to pause this video and open the beer off camera. It's always a bit annoying to do that, but what can you do? But we have got this one open successfully. Not much in the way of smoke coming off the beer when we open it up, but let's get it out into the glass and see what we have. Very much looking forward to this one. Ooh, look at that. There we are. That does look very, very nice, I have to say. So, yeah. This one here. Yeah, this looks pretty good. So before the head disappears, I can say that this beer is poured with about a half finger of a frothy, I would say kind of fawn coloured head. You can see that there. You know, small bubbles down toward the surface, but a few bigger ones sitting further up. But yeah, nice kind of fawn coloured head on this one. Yeah, not much in the way of visible carbonation. One or two big bubbles sticking toward the side of the glass, and a couple of little ones just going up toward the bottom of the head, which incidentally is fading away to be a nice kind of thin foamy layer. But yeah, it looks pretty good actually. In terms of the colour of this beer, this is quite interesting. You know, it's definitely within the spectrum of what you would expect from a barley wine. This is one of the kind of brighter ones I've seen. This is actually quite like a nice, I don't know how exactly what shade you guys will be seeing on the camera, but to me it actually comes across as a very nice bright sort of cherry wood colour, or like a very bright chestnut. It's kind of along those lines. But yeah, it does look very, very nice actually. So yeah, beautiful beer this one. I have to say, I could sit and stare at this all day. But remember, the colour of your beer depends on 1, the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. 2, length of your wort boil is also going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugar's caramelised, thus you get a darker colour of beer. Any barrel aging that you do, or any adjuncts that you put in, will of course affect the colour of the beer too. And yeah, I think in the case of barley wine, the barrel aging can affect the colour of it slightly. So maybe the kind of brightness of the colour of this is partially down to the use of the cognac barrels. But anyway, it's another thing. I will say as well that this beer has a little bit of natural haze to it. It's quite obviously unfiltered, which is a good thing, I would say. But yeah, it does have a little bit of a natural hazy element to it as well, which is good. But yeah, I think from the colour it's probably had a fairly lengthy wort boil as well, and you kind of always want to do that with barley wines. You know, you get these lovely big leathery brown sugary flavours from beers when you lengthen the wort boil a little bit. But in terms of what you'd expect from a barley wine, nothing out of the ordinary with this one, but definitely one of the brighter examples of this style that I've seen in recent times. So yeah, I think that's everything we need to say about the appearance of this beer. Let's have a wee look at the aroma and see how we get on with this one. Very curious about this. Ooh, yeah. I'm going to say straight away, this beer is going to be an absolute monster. Yeah, that is awesome. Yeah. So I'm going to say straight away, you've got the lovely woody elements to this one. You can smell the cognac spirit in there. You've got the big brown sugary notes. You've got the fruits. You've got a little bit of the hoppy character. It just smells absolutely lovely, this beer. Let's try and break it down for you though and describe it a wee bit more sort of in depth. So yeah, the backbone of the beer, absolutely. You get that nice, smooth, but slightly dry, woody character from the cognac barrels. On top of that, you can smell, you know, the dried fruity notes in there. You've got the kind of, you know, the sort of dried, the dried pears, the dried apricots, the sultana type notes. You can smell those sort of spirity notes from the cognac in there. I would add that there's a little tiny hint of like vanilla in the wood as well. You can really smell that in this beer. But yeah, the woody backbone, the cognac barrels in this one just have such an impact. It's great. It really is very, very nice how this beer goes together. I do, yeah, as I say, I do like how this beer goes together in that sense. Yeah, on top of that though, you've got all the kind of typical brown sugary notes that you expect of the barley wine. You can smell there's a little bit of the kind of more leathery brown sugar. So this one I think has had a little bit of a longer wort boil, but not too much, if that makes sense. So there's definitely a little bit of that kind of more leathery brown sugar. There's a little touch of there is a little touch of a kind of treacly molasses note to this one, but not overly much. Again, it's the brown sugary notes in this beer are actually really quite bright. There's a little bit of nuttiness in there too. There's a little bit of nuttiness in there. Leathery brown, yeah, as I say, they've got the leathery brown sugar, you've got a little bit of the treacle molasses, you've got sweet caramel, you've also got a little bit of a kind of Werther's Original butter candy, butterscotchy sort of thing, and then you've also got a kind of McVitie's digestive biscuity character as well. So, yeah, the brown sugary side of things in this beer really is quite interesting, but very bright and very sweet, and I think that's kind of promoted a little bit by the fact that it's cognac barrel aged. It really is lovely, I have to say. There is a little touch of breadiness to this beer. I mean, I am getting a little bit of a kind of sort of like fruit loaf type thing coming out of the beer. You can smell that sort of under the brown sugars. So yeah, I really do like how that goes together. But yeah, the brown sugars and the brightness of the brown sugars in here are just are awesome, I have to say that. Yeah, on the you know, on the I think that's everything we need to say about the sort of malty side of the beer. The only other thing I could add to this is that yeah, you do get the woodiness, the vanilla, and the nuttiness. These little subtleties come out more and more. The more that you smell of this beer, but this is going to be an absolute monster when we try it. I have to say that. I think it will be. I'm just curious to see how big and sticky the thing is. In terms of the hoppy character in this one, I have to say the green component in this beer is quite muted, but that makes sense when this beer was bottled nearly 2 years ago, actually. It's not far off 2 years, February 2021. So a lot of the hoppy character will have dropped out of this beer. But at the same time, you can smell, and before it's been bottled, it's been in barrels for 8 months. So I mean, yeah, it's about 2.5 years old in that sense, actually. So yeah, a lot of the hoppy character has dropped out of this one, but you can still smell a little bit of it. There's a little tiny touch of earthy and herbal character, a little bit of floral note, but you've also got some nice kind of you've also got some really nice kind of grassy elements in there as well. But yeah, the longer you leave this beer, of course, the more the green component will drop out of it. And this beer, as we say, is 2.5 years old. But still a wee bit of stuff going on there. On the fruity side of things, this beer is really quite interesting because you've got a mix of the kind of dried fruits that you could expect, but you've also got some of the you've also got some of the kind of more red fruity characters coming out of this beer as well. Yeah. So on the fruity side of things, it's you've definitely got some kind of sultanas and dates in there, you know, dried white green grapes and things. You have got that. You've also got, there's also quite a little bit of a kind of dry peary note to this beer for me too. And some of that, you know, of course, some of this is coming from the spirit. But yeah, pears, sultanas, dates. Yeah, pears, sultanas, dates, absolutely. You've also got a little, you do have a little bit of red fruit in there, so there's wee touches of figs and black currants for me. I don't know if I would go heavier and say blackberries or something like that, but there's a little bit of a kind of candied strawberry-ish note to this one too. There are more red fruity characters, but I think they'll come out a little bit more in the. I think they'll come out a little bit more in the aftertaste and things like that when we actually taste the beer. But the aroma of this beer really is quite interesting. This is quite a bright barley wine. It has a little bit. This is interesting though because it has a little bit of English character to it from the aroma. The more dried fruity notes are like kind of English, but the brown sugary side of this one is most definitely American. So yeah, this will be really interesting to try. So, pardon me, we'll need to see where on the spectrum this one lies. Because remember, American barley wines are more oily and sweet and bright red fruity. English barley wines are a bit more toasty and dry fruity in my experience. But yeah, aroma wise, this beer is beautiful. But I think we should have a taste of this one and see what it's all about. But yeah, this is the Remains, an 11% barley wine aged in cognac barrels for 8 months, part of the Black Barrel series from Panimoyhtiö Tuju in Lappeenranta in the southeast of Finland. Let's get stuck into this one. Slange, skull, cheers, keep peace. Yeah, that's pretty nice, I have to say. First impression is though, it's a good bit more bready and dry than I thought it was going to be. Yeah. That really is interesting. This is very, first impression of this one is it's very boozy. It does have a lot of breadiness to it. But you do get the nice wood. This one, I think, it does take your palate a little bit of time to adjust to this. But that is a monster. That is an absolute monster of a barley wine. Yeah, this one, you can feel with this, the dryness that you get out of this beer really is... the cognac just rolls out of this one in the aftertaste. So this is really interesting. This is quite a different approach compared with other barley wines that we've had in the past. So, where do we start with this then? The thing as well is the brown. I expected this one to be a lot more kind of sticky and brown sugary from the aroma, but it's actually the brown sugars are a lot more subtle in this beer, which is quite interesting. I like that. So middle third of the palate then. Let's have a wee look at that. So middle third of the palate. There's, you can feel the backbone of this beer, absolutely. It's the woody character from the barrels. That is absolutely there. You can feel toward the front of that middle third of your palate, there's absolutely a little bit of kind of, that you do get a little tiny touch of vanilla within the wood there, but you can feel the spirit, the cognac spirit in this one is, the cognac spirit is just sitting above there, and it actually gives the beer a fair little bit of booziness. You can really, in the aftertaste, the woodiness and the cognac really comes out in this one, and you can just feel this sort of raw cognac-y booziness into the aftertaste with this beer. So that is interesting. So yeah, lovely smooth woodiness, little touch of vanilla, little touch of nuttiness with it, mixing in with the vanilla as well, in fairness. Then you've got the layer of cognac spirit. So yeah, you're getting the sort of dried perry notes out of this one, the dried dates and sultanas and stuff. You can just feel that boozy, cognac-y layer there. Above that though, you start to get, there is a layer, and it's a mix of kind of cakey and bready. So you can feel there's that cakey bready layer sitting above the spirit, and it is like a sort of, you know, brandy soaked fruit oaf. It's kind of like that. So you have that sort of layer there sitting on top of the spirit, and then above all of that you start to get the brown sugary notes out of the beer. And I will say, you know, from drinking this beer, it is actually more, this really strikes me as more of an English barley wine than an American one. And the reason I say that is the brown sugars are not quite as oily and sweet, and the fruits aren't that ready, that kind of red and oily either. This has got more of a kind of roasty, toasty, and dry brown sugary note to it, as well as a more kind of dry, fruity character. And for me, those are characteristics of the English category barley wine. So, yeah, I think this is quite interesting from that perspective. So the brown sugary notes, as I say, you've got that kind of fruit roll, layer sitting there. Then you get the brown sugars. So you've got this layer of like a kind of layer. It's almost like you've got a circle above the kind of sort of brandy soaked fruit loaf there. You've got this circle in the middle of your palate, which is which gives you that sort of leathery, you get that leathery brown sugar out of this one. Then, if you work your way down, the brown sugars are also layered. So in the dead centre of your palate, in the absolute middle, which is covering the booziness, of course, in the absolute middle of your palate, you have a little bit of that sweet. You do have a little bit of a kind of treat. You've got a straight up treacle molasses sort of thing. Then as you move a little bit further out from that, you start to get a Werther's Original butter candy type note. And then you've got a sweeter caramelly type quality underneath that. And as you move out toward the edges of that circle that I just mentioned, you start to get the more roasty, toasty brown sugars, and underneath that, you've got that kind of leathery layer. So there's a fair bit of complexity to the brown sugary side of this beer. But yeah, it's very distinct. You've got the woody layer with the spirit. You've got the sort of cakey, bready layer, and then you've got the brown sugars. But this beer is actually quite dry. It's one of the drier barley wines I've had in recent times, but the fact that it is so dry and kind of more roasty and toasty, that's what puts it in the English barley wine category for me, I have to say. Yeah. This is quite This is quite interesting actually in that sense. Other than that, I don't know if there's really too much to say about the middle third of the palate. So let's go to the back third of the palate then. The border region between middle and back third of your palate. Again, you get a little bit of a bready build up there, so you can feel that. The base of the back third of your palate, you've got a little bit more of a kind of nice woody. Yeah, you've got a little bit of a more nice kind of woody character there, so you can feel the wood is drier. And remember, as I've always said, drier and more bitter flavours come out further back on the palate, whereas sweeter flavours come out further forward. So yeah, you get the nice kind of dry woody base. You don't get so much of the spirit in this one as well. On top of that, you can feel the sort of fruit loafy cakey layer. So yeah, there's definitely that. So yeah, fruit loafy cakey layer in this one. And again, that's a little bit drier, but then above that, there's not too much going on the back third of your palate. You can feel some airy yeasty notes. So let's focus on that a little bit. So yeah, the woody layer, the kind of cakey brandy soaked layer, then you've got the more airy yeasty type note coming out of this one. And the airy yeasty note in this beer, it's actually like a kind of toasty, well-fired bread actually. You can feel those airy yeasty notes. There's a little bit of honeycomb in there, and yeah, the way that it goes together is very, very nice. Yeah, so you can feel the layers of this beer. You can feel the back third of your palate is taller. Then as you come further forward into the middle third of your palate, it just condenses down and squashes together a little bit more. But yeah, the back third of the palate doesn't have too much kind of complexity to it. As I say, dry woody layer, the brandy soaked fruit loaf, which is incidentally taller and more airy. Then you've got a little bit more of a kind of airy yeasty bready character, a little bit of honeycomb, a little bit of brown bread, you know, sort of kind of like that. But other than that, yeah, I think that covers the malty and yeasty side of the beer. On the hoppy side of things, back corners of the palate, you've got a nice little bit of earthiness in there. You can still get this, and remember, as I said earlier, the hoppy side, the hops will drop out of the beer the further into the aftertaste that you go. So yeah, you've got a little bit of that kind of hoppy. You do have a little bit of that kind of hoppy bitterness in there, but there's a little bit of earthiness. As you move further forward, it does have a little touch of herbal character, and you can feel that as you move toward the kind of front corners of your palate, it has got a little touch of like pine resin and a little touch of and a little bit of you know, floral aromaticity. I wouldn't be surprised if it was a little bit of Columbus and Chinook and maybe Cascade that had been used in this beer. There's just something familiar about the green component of this one, but you can feel that depth to it. So I think it's American hopped, I'm pretty sure about that. But round the front curve of the palate, it feels a little bit lighter and more grassy, for sure. But again, it's the grassiness, the green component isn't too big in this particular beer. So yeah. So yeah, the green component in this one, you can feel it's not too prominent, but again, as we've said a few times, it's like a 2.5-year-old barley wine, this one. So yeah, that's worth bearing in mind. The hoppy character will continue to drop out of this one the longer you leave it. So yeah, nice little bit of floral aromaticity, a good little bit of grassiness in there, but yeah, not overly prominent, if that makes sense. So the border region between front third and middle third of your palate, again, you get a little bit of a bready build up in there, nice kind of brown bready notes, but the base of that front third of your palate, you can feel there's a little bit of woodiness in there, a little bit of woodiness, a little bit of the kind of brown bready character. Then above that, you've got that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters roll their way out of the beer. And this is interesting for me because, as I mentioned before, the green component in this beer indicates American hops. You know, sort of probably Chinook, Cascade would be the two, potentially a little bit of Columbus because of the spiciness that the beer has. However, the fruity side of things makes me wonder, is there a bit of Bramling's Cross in this? Bramling's Cross is a very popular hop to use when it comes to English barley wines. And like I said, the character of this beer, the more I drink of it, the more I think, yeah, this is an English barley wine. But yeah, at the back of that front third of your palate, let's just take the fruity side of things. So, the back of the front third of your palate, you've got a little touch of a raisiny note on top, but mainly the back, the back half of that front third of your palate, it's more about, you've kind of got sultanas in the base and a bit more of an oily, datey character on top of that. And as you move further forward, you get a little touch of figgy character. Yeah, there's a little touch of figgy character in there, and you've also just got that little bit of there's a little touch of figgy character, and also a little bit of a more a little touch of figgy character and a little bit of a more kind of black curranty thing. When you go into the front half of that front 30 pack, there's a little bit touch of a black curranty base. But yeah, back half of that front third of your palate, little touch of raisin on top, oily pear, dates, sultanas. As you move further forward, a little bit of fig. Yeah, little touch of fig, little touch of as we say, a little touch of fig, little touch of a kind of black curranty note in there, and you've also got just a wee bit of a more kind of candied strawberry or something sitting on top of that. The fruity character in this beer really is more akin with an English barley wine than anything else. So I do wonder, maybe there is a bit of Bramlin's Cross in this one. But yeah, the more and more that I drink of this beer, it seems like an old school English barley wine actually. But of course the cognac barrels are going to play a big role in determining that. But this is quite dry and it's quite a bready barley wine. It's also a bit more toasty, which again, these are all characteristics of an English barley wine as opposed to the American ones, which are more sweet and oily, if that makes sense. But still, it's a really interesting beer, this one. Actually, but really not kind of what I expected, to be honest. But yeah, I've enjoyed it. Let's round off this review with a wee look at the mouthfeel then. Mouthfeel wise, this one for me, it's kind of bottom end full bodied. And remember, this is one of the things when you barrel age a beer, you're always going to sacrifice a bit of the mouthfeel to get these infused flavours. So yeah, bottom end full bodied. Carbonation is very smooth. It's quite a slick and oily beer in terms of its mouthfeel. In terms of its IBUs, I don't think it's too high in terms of IBUs, but the beer does have a little bit of dryness to it, which you could mistake for being IBU. So the dryness that you get is maybe the equivalent of like 30-ish IBUs, something like that. The malt base, as I said, has it's got a bit of dryness to it, a little bit of toastiness, and also the big oily brown sugars. And then you've got the big sweet, kind of fruity, you've got the big sweet brown sugars on top of that. Then the fruity side of the beer, as we said, it's a little bit dry. You know, you've got that little bit of dryness in there. You've got that little bit of dryness, you've got that little bit of oiliness, and yeah, it's really quite nice in that sense, but definitely more of an English barley wine with all those dried fruity characteristics rather than being more kind of wet and oily like the American ones. But yeah, I think this has been an interesting beer to try, but definitely an old school English style barley wine rather than anything else. But I think we can leave it at that for this one. So this was The Remains, an 11% cognac barrel-aged barley wine, part of the Black Barrel series from Panimoyhtiö Tuju in Lappeenranta in Finland. A really interesting beer, this one. Not what I expected, but still quite enjoyable nonetheless. So yeah, once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comments section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Tuju as well, and we will return to these guys at some point fairly soon, because like I said, we've got a sour beer to try from them. Thank you again to Riku for this beer, and we will do more from these guys in the future. I do want to try the 2 stouts that are in this this series as well, so I'll talk to Riku about that. But until the next time, Slange at Skull, cheers, check out my social media, check out Tuju's social media, and I'll see you guys in the next review. Slange at Skull, cheers, keepis and kitos.